I knew my family was capable of coldness, but staring at those two empty velvet chairs in the front row of my wedding ceremony made my chest tighten with a painful clarity. My parents did not lose their way, nor did they face some sudden emergency on the road. They chose to abandon me on my most important day simply because I dared to marry before my golden sister did. This silence was the first sign of a much larger storm brewing. 3 weeks after my quiet wedding, I walked into the grand foyer of Windward Manor, holding a thick folder that contained their ruin. My mother, Sylvia, greeted me with the same hollow smile she used for her wealthiest clients, insisting they treated both daughters equally. I could not help but laugh out loud at her delusion, which only brought my father, Arthur, roaring out of his office. He slammed his hand on the wooden railing and accused me of destroying the wedding of my sister. When I looked Arthur dead in the eye and asked if he was truly telling the truth, his sudden silence spoke louder than any apology. From the upper floor, the sound of weeping began to echo through the halls, while outside in the garden, workers silently dismantled floral arches. The fiancé of my sister, Preston, had vanished into thin air, and the business partners of my father were demanding immediate answers. Their 30-year illusion of the perfect family was shattering completely. To understand why my simple wedding felt like treason to my parents, you must understand the family business of Windward Manor. Arthur had turned the old coastal property into an elite venue, while Sylvia managed the clients and the flawless stories we sold to magazines. My sister, Audrey, was the star of this operation, always photogenic, elegant, and positioned as the future owner. I worked miles away at a maritime museum, preserving damaged audio recordings from dying tape. Our differences were never called favoritism by our parents, but were always masked as logical decisions. Audrey received expensive private lessons to build her poise, while my interests in sound were dismissed as a useless waste of time. Her errors were forgiven as the results of heavy stress, while my mistakes were cited as proof of a total lack of drive. They paid her extra college tuition without a word, yet questioned why I needed a degree for my work. My grandmother, Beatrice, was the single soul who valued my passions and taught me that forgotten voices deserve protection. Before she passed, she established separate trust funds for Audrey and me, telling me that my fund was meant to buy my true independence. She warned me never to let anyone buy my obedience with empty promises. But I was young and foolishly let my father manage the money. For years, he claimed the investments were failing or locked away. My life shifted when I met Julian, a ferry systems engineer who listened to me with genuine interest and never treated me like a project. After 2 beautiful years, he proposed at the Old Harbor Signal Station where we shared our first date, and I accepted instantly. When I shared the news, my mother asked if Audrey knew, and my father muttered that the timing would create problems. Audrey was engaged to Preston, but had delayed her wedding for major estate renovations. Sylvia demanded that I wait a full year because Audrey deserved to have her moment first, but Julian and I wanted a small fall wedding. My father flatly refused to bless us, stating that the older sister must always marry first to maintain the proper family order. That was the moment I realized this was not about logistics, but about maintaining their strict hierarchy. When I booked the venue anyway, my mother warned me they would not attend my ceremony. They kept their cruel promise, even posting a family picture online during my vows to show what they valued. Yet their absence was not just a social punishment, as it was also meant to keep me from looking into my finances. 10 days later, my college friend Hazel, who worked with estate records, discovered a document indicating that full control of my trust should have transferred to me on my 25th birthday. I was 29, and the account was empty. At the bank, a clerk revealed that over $180,000 had been withdrawn through 6 separate transactions. The signatures looked like mine, but were too clean, as if a stranger had traced them. The money had flowed directly into the business accounts of Audrey and the development firm of Preston. My father did not just hide my inheritance, but he had actively forged my name to fund the dreams of his favorite daughter. I hired a lawyer named Vivian, who specializes in financial fraud, and she immediately demanded the digital logs and notary details from the bank. We discovered that the notary stamp belonged to a deceased former employee of Windward Manor, making the fraud undeniable. To make matters worse, I found an old tape recorder containing a discussion where Beatrice explicitly stated my money belonged to me alone, while my mother tried to argue for flexibility. The betrayal deepened when Vivian uncovered a major loan application that listed me as a guarantor for $400,000. My father had forged my name once again, trying to tie his failing business debts to my personal credit. Windward Manor was actually drowning in debt, and Audrey was using her wedding to lure rich investors to save the family estate. My sudden independence threatened to expose their lies to the father of Preston. For the next month, I remained entirely silent, which my parents mistook for submission while they posted lavish wedding updates online. Vivian and I quietly traced the money trail and prepared a mountain of undeniable evidence. Then my mother sent a legal document under the guise of an estate update, which would have legally cleared them of their fraud. I ignored her trap and replied that I would consider attending the big welcome reception on Saturday. I arrived at the glittering welcome reception not as a guest, but as a silent force ready to tear down their kingdom. The new glass conservatory was stunning, paid for by the money they stole from me, and filled with wealthy investors. When Sylvia saw me, she smiled with relief, thinking I had returned to play my part in their perfect picture. Instead, I handed my father the file containing the forgery proofs, the bank records, and the loan documents. Arthur went pale as he scanned the papers, realizing that one word from me would trigger a criminal investigation and ruin his deal. The investors noticed his panic, and within hours, the entire partnership dissolved as Preston and his father withdrew their support. My sister screamed that I ruined her life, but I felt only a profound sense of peace. Julian and I walked away from the wreckage of Windward Manor, leaving them to face the consequences of their greed. In the months that followed, Arthur was forced to sell the estate to settle his massive debts, and the perfect family image vanished forever. I learned that true family is not built on blood or public appearances, but on honesty, respect, and unconditional love. Today, Julian and I build our lives on a foundation of truth, knowing that the voices of the past can finally rest in peace. The truth will always find its way to the light.